All right. If we got the recording going, let's ask our Father to watch over us and our technology. And oh Lord, we praise you and we thank you for your greatness, your goodness, your faithfulness, all that you mean to us. We just bring our lives to you today and ask you to just continue to give us your direction, your wisdom for the various tasks that you've called us to do. Just thank you, Lord, that we can gather together like this over the airways. I pray that you would watch over the technology and the internet connections and the computers and everything else that's needed to make these sessions work. And I just pray that you can just continue to watch over each one, Lord, and continue to give us wisdom and direction for what you want us to be doing. It's in your name, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right. Well, we kind of go on to a fast track as we get into this course, because you have to get together a dissertation proposal over this 9-week period, and that's a bit of a challenge at times. I understand that. We don't expect you to have a finished product, but we try to take you through some of the various parts of the dissertation proposal through this class. Try to give you some information, the best that we can, on some of those areas. As you work through each week, you will be kind of working on different parts of that proposal. What I think I'm going to do, before I go and get into that, it's probably just kind of helpful if we could just kind of go around and just kind of say who we are, since we have our faces on the screen now. You'll be talking with each other in the online sessions, but sometimes it's just so helpful in our first Zoom room just to kind of put a face with a name. So if you just maybe kind of give your name and where you're located, and if you even want to tell us, what kind of work ministry that you're involved in right now, that'd be kind of great. So on my screen, Lynn, you're the first, so why don't you go ahead and start?
Sure. My name is Lynn Bell. I know some of you in the class already. I'm in Denver, Colorado. I am the MBA director at BGU, just relatively new into that, started in September. And so I also do consulting work with organizations in culture and values, and I'm a stakeholder-centered executive coach. So that's a little bit about me.
All right. Thanks, Lynn. Christina.
Okay, this is Christina Ola, based in Budapest, Hungary, in Europe. I do online marketing and communication for different clients, non-profits and business clients also, because I have a business degree originally, and I am part of the Reformed Church here in Budapest, and I'm an elder, and I do women's ministry and some training on discipleship. That's me.
All right. Thank you, Christina. Dory, let's hear from you.
Hello, I'm Dory. I'm from outside of Boise, Idaho. Good morning, Natang. You were in my last class. Nice to see you. I am by education marriage and family counselor. I run a church-sponsored church-based counseling center and also serve on the pastoral staff at the church where I work. And that's a little about me.
All right. Thanks, Dory. Siobhan, go ahead.
Hi there, everyone. Good morning. I'm Siobhan Moraine, and I am in the Dallas, Texas area. I am a coach, John Maxwell coach, speaker, and trainer. And I'm also a pastor on call with my church in the care ministry. And I serve with my husband as a deacon at our church in Dallas, Texas, and women's connect team for our women's ministry, like to connect ladies.
All right, great, Siobhan. Thank you. Natang, go ahead.
I'm from Myanmar in Southeast Asia. I know many of you, Dory, Felicia, Christina. It's good to see you all again. And for those of you who do not know me, I teach in the Bible college, and I serve as a youth pastor in my local church. Yes.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Felicia, go ahead.
Hello, everybody. It's so nice to see you. Just like Lynn and Christina, I've gotten to know them, and also Natong and Tammy. Tammy, I got to know him in my last class, ASM 702. It's so nice to meet you all again in this class. And to Shauna and Dory, as well as Claire, you have not introduced yourself. Hi to you. And of course, I met Dr. Bill in the organization assessment class. Just a little bit about me. I'm in Malaysia. And although in my last class, I've said that, I'm stuck and stranded down here, I have come to know that God has a plan for me down here. There's a reason for him to bring me back here. And it took him 2 years to just get me to say, yes, I'll stay, and close my heart towards going back to the US. So I'm right now with an organization called Sovereign Asia Pacific. And I serve there as the CEO. So what I do is I actually raise business leaders in the suburban part of Malaysia, and I nurture their organizations. So that's what I'm doing, and I hope to be doing my dissertation research paper in that context. How do you actually use a marketplace language coming into a culture that's very diversified? Obviously, the Judeo-Christian foundations. So I hope to learn from all of y'all again.
All right, good. Thank you, Felicia. Tammy, why don't you introduce us? Tell us where you're at and what you're doing. Make sure you turn on your microphone. There you go.
Hello, everyone. Felicia, good to meet you again from our last class. Bill, it's my pleasure meeting you and everyone in the class. My name is Tamara Siloko. I live in Nigeria, and I'm a pastor, a church pastor, and a church planter. And I'm so much interested in developing leaders and also youth development. And for me, that's my area of focus, even for my final project. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure meeting all of you. I hope we have a wonderful time in the class. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Tammy. Well, Dr. Henry, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Go ahead, Dr. Henry. Yeah, there we go.
Hello, I am Claire Henry, and I'm in New York City. At my local church, I'm one of the leaders in our ministry team. I'm secretary to the council, and I'm also involved in teaching young adults in Sunday school. Those are some of my passions. Here at BACI, in addition to teaching 2 of the courses in the women's leadership section, I also am working on designing the PhD program. I look forward to meeting you. I've met 1 or 2 of you in other classes.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Henry. And I noticed Dr. Adeot, our academic dean, just joined us. If you just want to give a greeting, Martine, we'd appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. It's good to see you all and see Felicia and Christina and Dory and everybody. I think I know all of you. Good to be there. And I just wanted to greet you a little bit and have a glimpse of what's happening here.
Great. All right. Well, thanks for joining us for a bit. Well, good. Well, I'm going to just give a few introductory remarks. I'm going to share my screen for a moment. And then I'm going to have Dr. Henry give some comments also. Let's see. Are you seeing my PowerPoint screen, project design methodology? Is that showing up fine?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Well, we are, there's 4 textbooks that you have, hopefully you've done some of the initial reading. I asked that you would read a few chapters in each of those as pre-course reading for this class. because we have to get through so much content. I think it's just helpful that you've been able to look at some of that, and then we'll focus on, different parts of those various texts that relate to a particular week. You went to the Craft of Research, which by Wayne Booth. It's been around for a long time, but I like that particular book because it gives quite a bit of information on how to write critically, okay, in terms of how to produce an academic argument, a claim, how to make a statement, how to give your supporting documentations for whatever you're saying, how to possibly give some opposing viewpoints, and then to come to a conclusion. And a lot of us don't write in that kind of a structured manner all the time, and so it takes a little bit of practice to become accustomed to that kind of academic writing. But hopefully some of the ideas that the authors give you in that particular book will be helpful as you're working on your projects. There's a book, Research Design, Qualitative, Quantitative, and Mixed Methods by John Cresswell. Dr. Cresswell has been in the research industry for a number of years. He's written, several books in that vein. I have that book on there, just kind of gives you some overview, especially the quantitative part that doesn't get covered in some of the other books. Hopefully you'll be able to look at that and get, some idea of the quantitative research approach. His book is a little more involved, I think. Sometimes it's a little more difficult to read than, say, the one by Sharon Miriam. I like her book, Qualitative Research, A Guide to Design and Implementation. That book is there because it really seems to give you, I think, a good overview of the qualitative approach, which seems to be probably the most popular approach that is used by most dissertations I've seen anyway at BGU, digging into a deeper meaning on a particular issue. And then the book by Tim Sensing, Qualitative Research, a Multi-Method Approach, that's kind of on the textbook list because Dr. Sensing kind of takes the dissertation approach and really applies it to a DMin project or a DTL project, which, and having the theological component there. And so he's one of the few authors, I think, that really kind of brings that whole piece into the dissertation process well. So you've got those. We've got a few research articles on the reading list for this week, and I think Dr. Henry will talk about a few of these. She is working through a presentation with you. How to read a research article, Thinking Like a Researcher. There's one that our technical reader has put together called 22 Tips from the Tech Reader, and I really hope make sure you look at that particular article because it just covers some of those details on writing a dissertation using good dissertation style. And so I really need you to read that. There's also a video on this week on library skills that our librarian, Jennifer Oman, has put together. And I really need you to look at that because we don't have a lot of time just to go through those skills together. The format, of course, through the course, you'll be involved in weekly discussions. You started this week, you're starting this week in the Getting to Know You discussion. I've noticed a few of you have put some posts on there. And so we'll be working through those. I also ask you to take a look at the document called Grading Discussions. It really gives the criteria by which we grade discussions, and you can find that on the info page. If you've been on an online course, and most of you have, I'm sure, there's an info page. There's a tab that says info, and you'll find a lot of documents there that are just of general reference for the whole course. And so, the 22 tips are there, the Thinking Like a Researcher, those articles are all there under the files area of the info. On the info page, the library skills video is under the links. I think the links section of that info page. So please take a look at those. Again, the grading discussion, that's where I was asked. The grading discussions document is also on that info page under the files. We'll be having weekly Zoom rooms that we're involved in right now. And we'll generally work at this time. Next week, we've got a conflict on meetings, and so I'm hoping that we can maybe move this class to, say, Wednesday at the same time. I'm not sure if that would. Let me just ask. Would that work for everyone next week if we met at Wednesday at this same time, and then we'd go back to our Monday schedule in the following week?
Yes.
Yes, Felicia.
Yes.
Okay. All right. If you have a conflict, you let me know. They will be recorded. But I generally like to have the Monday time slot because we can kind of get started together in the week and go over some of the issues.
Yes, for me.
Does that work for you too? Okay. All right. Well, that's what we'll do next week. We'll do Wednesday at this same time slot, which I think is 10:30 Eastern time here in the United States. So that'll be just next week, and then we'll go back to our Monday times for the weeks after. Okay, just making myself a note to that effect. All right, you all, like I said, you're kind of working on a final project proposal throughout this course. That document's usually 30 to 45 pages in length, depending on what you're doing in each of the works. We'll be going through those chapters through the weekly assignments. Starting out this week. Well, this week we're actually having you trying to find 2 research articles, just to kind of get you accustomed to looking at research articles, analyzing them. We're asking you to try to determine what's the problem statement you think is being addressed in that particular article. What would you consider the research questions? What is that author? What are the questions that author is seeking to address through that particular article? And then what is what we call the theoretical framework, which is just basically what theories, principles, abstract concepts that are being addressed seem to be related to that article. Adolescent psychology, transformational leadership, community development. Those are all principles, concept, models, asset-based development, community development. That's a model, a theory of an approach. So kind of see what's going on in the articles that you look at that seem to indicate, what's the problem statement, what kind of questions you think are trying to be answered by that article, and what theories, what models, what areas of knowledge do you think are related to that particular article. All right. Rather than doing standard book reviews like you do in most BGU courses, since you're working on a literature review for your proposal, that really is going to fulfill that requirement of our syllabus for this course. You'll be looking at articles, books that relate specifically to your project, and then putting together a literature review chapter for your proposal, which, that chapter in the proposal needs about 20 sources that you look at that are related to your project. Once you actually write the actual dissertation, I think it goes up to, we need to have about 30 titles brought into the discussion. But for the proposal, that'll be your goal. You're going to have about 20 sources that seem to be, very related to your project in some way, and you use those for your literature review. We'll of course talk about the literature review more in detail as we get into the weeks. And let's see, I think March 24th, that's when all work is going to be due for this course. I think we'll be ending our course about the first week in March, and so you've got a few weeks there to kind of bring it all together. By the time you reach the end of the 9-week course, you will pretty much have a proposal, but then you've got a couple weeks just to kind of refine it and put it into a form that you want to submit. And I always call the project that you submit for the course a project proposal draft, okay? Because even, I will give my feedback, Dr. Henry will give her feedback, and then we will issue a grade. But then you're gonna take that proposal and you're going to email it to someone that you have selected to be your primary supervisor. And hopefully by the time you end this course, you will have selected a primary supervisor. That can be someone, most people select a supervisor from the faculty at BGU because the faculty at BGU is familiar with our particular dissertation final project process. But you are free to, select someone else if there's someone else that is within your context that you feel very good about. That person at least must have an earned doctorate, okay? And so if they're not on the BGU faculty, we asked for a vita to be submitted so that I can approve that, and we can then put that in our records, in your student records. So be working on thinking about a supervisor, someone that you think maybe there's a BGU person that you've related well to during your time here that you would like to ask to be a part of that. Look at the website and just look at some of the bios of some of the various professors, adjunct professors, and see if someone fits what you're looking for. If you just totally hit a brick wall, dead end, then talk to me and I will try to make some recommendations. We've got some new faculty that have been coming on over the last several months, and I've kind of put an email out to them in the last couple of days just asking them if they'd like to be involved as dissertation supervisors, and I'm getting responses, so I'll be glad to forward those responses to you too, so you'll know those are also folks that would like to be involved as dissertation supervisors. Any questions on those issues at this point? Okay.
Dr. Bill, sorry.
Go ahead, Felicia. Go ahead, Felicia.
Yeah, may I know what is the role and responsibility of a supervisor?
What is the role, basically? It's
Yeah.
that the supervisor would start out by looking at your proposal and then making any additional recommendations that supervisor may have. Because I'll have some recommendations, Dr. Henry will have recommendations once you finish the course. But a supervisor, is going to work with you, and that'll be their first task to look at the proposal, make any additional recommendations, and then approve it. Okay. Once it's approved by your supervisor, then that proposal will go to our academic cabinet, which we meet once a month as an academic cabinet, and we look at various dissertations among the other business that we do in that particular committee. But yeah, that's where it gets approved. But that's the first task of the supervisor. Then once that proposal is submitted, your supervisor would be you'd be submitting a chapter at a time. Whenever you finish a chapter of your dissertation, you would submit that to your supervisor. The supervisor should look over that chapter, give you feedback, give you ideas, anything that he or she may be able to contribute to that process. Once you've gone through that process of working through a dissertation, chapter by chapter, you'll then, at the culmination of that process, you're going to be involved in an oral review, which is done by phone. I'm usually a part of that oral review. Your supervisor is a part of that oral review, and a second reader, or kind of a secondary person that you will select also when you get a proposal, a dissertation draft together. A second reader will also be involved in looking at. So I mention that because the oral review will have, like I say, the supervisor, a BGU representative, and a second reader. And then, they will kind of go through a time of just kind of overviewing your whole dissertation process and basically just your whole BGU educational process. You just kind of spend a couple hours together, and then they give a final evaluation before you move on to graduation. That's kind of a thumbnail sketch, I think, of how the supervisor is involved.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see what's over here. Now, this is that document I want you to make sure you look at, called the 22 Tips. It's called Common Academic Writing Issues on the screen here, but I think we've got the catchy title, 22 Tips from the Tech Reader. But it goes over a lot of these little pieces of information that are necessary for dissertation writing. When referring to yourself, use the pronouns I or me, not the author or the researcher, for example. In days past, it was common to just kind of refer to yourself and in the third person, you're calling the researcher or the author. Now it's more customary, and APA really recommends this, which is the standard that we use, mainly APA, American Psychological Association format. Anyway, so you refer yourself to I or me. Another common error that we often do, because we use what we call the editorial we often use it in our popular writing. We may say, you know, we need to be servant leaders. Well, you know, who does we refer to? Okay, in strict dissertation writing, you need to define that. Okay, if say you're working in a church structure, we at First Street Southern Baptist Church need to function as servant leaders. If you use the term we, you need to identify who you're talking about. Sometimes when we're doing work in say any kind of a study, we may say, you know, we can see that Jeremiah 1:7 says such and such. Again, that's the use of the editorial we, which is not really an acceptable practice in dissertation writing. Okay, so sometimes a very difficult habit to break, because I say we tend to, when I read even other scholarly books, sometimes the term we is just used. But APA is very strict on not doing that. Okay, and so we try to hold to that. Same way you don't use the word you. Sometimes we can use that in our popular conversation. You should be a servant leader. Well, again, you'd have to, that's not acceptable. There's 22 of these anyway, but you need to kind of go through and just kind of become familiar with some of these general standards for academic writing. So I'm not going to go through all those right now, but I just put it on the screen so that you'll make sure you'll look up this document on the info page. All right, I'm going to stop there. I do encourage you to look at that video that's online, that's in the classroom on the video skills. I mean the library skills, because again, Jennifer Roman has put that together. So I'm not going to take the time to go over that today, since that video is there for you to look at. And your assignment this week will be finding two research articles and trying to analyze them. So you do need to go into the BGU library, and you can get into, you know, several databases there. You can get into ProQuest, you can get into Google Scholar, and just a lot of different databases there that I'd like you to be able to use. Use one of them. I recommend ProQuest, since we have a subscription to that, you know, and you can just, you know, enter a topic, and it'll come back with, you know, a lot of different information. So take a look at those library. You can get to it. Wait a second here. I'll just show you to make sure. Okay. All right, I was going to show you in Populi, but when you go into the Populi screen, up at the top, I'm just looking at mine now. Let me share my screen one more time. Just in case anyone has trouble even getting into the library. Okay, here's the Populi screen that you go into when you first go in. Right up here, you know, there's these 4 links, and this one right here, library, will take you over to the library. You know, and the first screen that comes up is the catalog. You know, you can enter, you know, a topic here. I'll just do one, and then actually I don't want to really take a lot of time on this, but qualitative. I've got my caps lock on. Let's just see what that does. Okay, this brings up, these are some books. You know, this is one of our textbooks. This one happens to be available online, so you know, you can actually read the whole thing online if you needed to. The one by Cresswell is also in our library as an online text. Qualitative research, one by Miriam, that there isn't an online version of that available. So you'd have to purchase that particular textbook if you don't have it already. Anyway, that's one of the ways you can use our library. The other important area in the library is this thing up here called links. If I go to that links, it takes me to these databases that I just talked about. Here's ProQuest. You know, you do have to enter a code. Usually it's your student ID. You will have something to enter there. And I'm now in ProQuest. I can do the same thing here. I can enter a title. let's just say if I entered servant leadership. Okay, you can kind of pick where, if you want to look at all articles that are contained in ProQuest. I want to just look at scholarly articles. Okay, and that means they're going to come out of journals in some form. If I hit the search button, I'm going to get a lot of titles on that. But here are articles that I could look at. And since these are coming from scholarly journals, these are generally going to be the kind of research articles that we're asking you to look at. And so you'd look at it and kind of try to analyze what's going on in that research article in terms of what the assignment is this week. What do you think the problem statement is that person's working on? What are the research questions? What are the questions that article is trying to answer in terms of the research? And what are some of the theories, the models, the theoretical framework that are involved related to that particular article? This week, we're trying to get you accustomed to looking at research articles and analyzing them with a researcher's mindset. Okay, that's all I'm going to do on that. I think right now I'm going to let Dr. Henry now do some sharing, because she was going to specifically get into some issues on what it's going to mean for you to function as a researcher in this course. So Dr. Henry, why don't you go ahead and share your screen when you're ready, and go ahead and lead us through some thoughts.
Okay, I wouldn't be sharing my screen today.
Okay.
I'll just be talking with you about what it means to complete this course successfully. The one thing that stands out for me in this course is that you have not done any course like this before, because of the demands of the course and the focus of the course. The end product is your proposal, but your proposal is very, very different to any term paper that you have done. Perhaps in your professional life, you've had to write a proposal, but even then, this is a different style, a different kind of writing altogether. And I want to start with that because as I've worked with students in this process, this is the first hurdle that I find students have to jump to recognize that this writing style and the demands of it is quite different from anything that they have done before. Because the problem is, if you take a term paper approach to this, you're going to find this a very frustrating process. For one thing, from the get-go, you are going to be rewriting and revising and rewriting and revising. When you do a term paper, you do it a week before or whatever, and then you submit it to us. We give you a grade and it's done. This, if you don't understand the process, it never seems to end. In fact, for some of us, it seems as though it gets worse. I'll say it gets worse to get better, depending on the strengths that you come to the process with. Now, there are two articles that I've put in that I have found helpful, and I know you will find helpful as you enter into this course. One is how to read a research article, and the second one is how to think like a researcher. I'm just going to make some brief comments on these articles and invite you to read them for yourself. How to read a research article. I usually say to people, research articles are bland, boring pieces of reading. And usually we only read research articles when we have to. Having said that, you have to have a strategy in order to read a research article and come away with an understanding of what it is all about. So generally, we only read research articles on topics that we are passionate about. Note that word passion, we're going to be talking about it. So the research articles you are going to read, you're going to be selective. And they're going to be research articles that you think will help you in the process of developing the proposal. So it's likely that no two of you in this class will be reading the same article, unless it is you're doing the same study. It's going to be unique to what you're doing. Having said that, though, what is the strategy? First of all, as Dr. Payne has just illustrated to us going through the library search, there must be articles that are found in a peer-reviewed journal. That's important. If it's not in a peer-reviewed journal, then you don't want to waste your time reading those articles. However, having said that, I just want to warn you that one of the things you're going to find, one of the challenges you're going to find in this process is that you're going to end up reading many, many more articles than you're going to actually put into the literature review chapter. I want to say that because students have found this quite a challenge. Yes, we say for the chapter, literature review chapter, you need to reference at least 20 journal articles for the proposal. However, that means you're going to be reading more because you're going to have to read and decide which ones are most relevant to what you're doing. So be prepared to read more. Having said that, in terms of reading the research articles, most research articles, peer-reviewed articles, start with an abstract. And sometimes all you need to do is read the abstract in order to decide whether or not you should read on. So read the abstract. The abstract summarizes the purpose of the research, the method of the research, the sample size, if it's quantitative. If it's qualitative, it references the context in which the study was done, the interviews, the surveys, those basic things that make up a research article. So having read the abstract, you will decide to read on. In reading on, you want to read the introduction section because that section will give you a summary of the purpose of the research, where the research was done, the sample size, etc. And then the other thing about reading a research article is you don't have to read it all in one sitting. If you go to it with that approach, you're going to be frustrated. You could just read sections and then go back to it, right? That's important. You want to read about the theory that undergirds the research. That's very important because the central piece of the proposal that you will be doing is focused on your understanding of the theory that undergirds the issue that you want to study. So the theoretical framework, which is usually reported in your literature review section of the article, is an important piece. Read that to see if that is really what your interest is. Then you would want to move to the method. What method was used? And I want to go back a little in terms of introduction. You want to pay attention to the questions that undergirded the study. Those questions are important because you are going to propose the questions that you would like answered by this research. And writing questions are important. It's a skill by itself. Excuse me, but however, it does help to look at what questions other people ask. And there's nothing wrong with using questions from other sources. You just want to reference that as you report your research, that you are asking the same questions as X did in his or her research. But questioning is an important piece to good research. So you want to pay attention to the questions of the research. You want to pay attention to the context in which the research was done. Who were the sample? How were they selected for the quantitative research? For the qualitative research, the context in terms of the survey design, who designed the survey, the questionnaire, the interview. And I just want to make a statement here about doing surveys and survey design. Survey design is a skill by itself. You need to do a whole course to master it. And for that reason, I often say to students, in terms of the questionnaire, the interview, it is good if you could find a questionnaire that has already been designed, developed, and tested, and use that for your research. You can design your own questionnaire. It's a lot of work. It's a process, and your questionnaire, your instrument, needs to be validated. So it's better to use one that is already out there. So those are some of the key components to the research article that I'd like you to focus on when you decide to select the research articles that you are going to do. Please excuse that. Okay, how to think like a researcher. I love this article. Because the foundation to the success of what you do in this course has to do with your critical thinking skills. How do you think? And research requires a particular kind of thinking. So I definitely propose that you read this article. What I found interesting about this article, please excuse me. Was that the writer started by looking at attitudes. And that is important because in my years of working with students in research writing, one of the things that stand out is that those students who succeed come to the process with a certain attitude. Attitude is key. That is why I started out by saying that this course is different to any other course that you have done, and the requirements are very different. Attitude is key. And the writer talks about this. And in talking about attitude, he mentions 4 points that I totally agree with, having worked with students doing research. He says you need to be passionate, you need to be curious, you need to be humble, and you need to be persistent. And those are definitely the 4 characteristics that mark successful work in a doctoral program when it comes to the completion of your proposal. And I want to add there, patient. Patience with yourself and patience with us, your professors and your supervisor. Because every time you get that draft back and you look at it, you're going to shake your head and say, why didn't he or she tell me this before? They didn't tell me this. Patience. It's a process, and it's not a tidy process. So it does test your patience. But passion is key. You're going to study a topic on which you are passionate, because passion is what is going to get you to the finish line. Because when you start to get those niggling questions from us as supervisors, when we start to question your writing style and your use of sources, it's passion that will keep you going. So choose something that you are passionate about, that you want to study, and stick with it. Curiosity, of course, passion and curiosity go together. For years, you have been observing an organization. You've been observing how people in that organization behave, and you have some ideas about why these people behave the way they behave. You're curious. You've probably been asking questions of the leaders of an organization. As you've read literature on organizational behavior, it's perked up your interest. Your curiosity, that's important. Humility, know what you know and know what you don't know. And unfortunately, in this process, you're going to learn a lot about what you don't know. And that is not usually fun. but humility will get you over that. Definitely. And so be prepared to find out that you did not understand as much as you thought you understood, and that some of the things, some of the ideas that you have, you're going to have to put them aside to entertain some new ideas. And then the last, persistence. Persistence. And a lot has to do with personality, life experience, etc. There's some people who, for whatever reason, like to start projects and not complete. This is not going to be a good process for you. If you're the kind of person who, once you start something, you're going to complete it, you're in the right place. Because that persistence, that push, that value system that says, I've started this and I'm going to end it. No, it may not be the best piece of work I've done, and I'm not saying you shouldn't aim for the best, but I'm going to end it because I started it, right? So persistence, but passion, patience, curiosity, humility, and persistence will get you through this otherwise very challenging course. I look forward to working with you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Henry. Yeah, let me just make one other, kind of just emphasize one thing that Dr. Henry mentioned just now, and that's the issue of kind of coming at a project, trying to clear your mind of a lot of your preconceived ideas. You know, and like she just said, it's very difficult, especially say if you've worked in a community, in a particular organization. Too often I've seen students kind of start the dissertation with what they're all kind of preconceived ideas. You know, they will say, you know, we should do such and such, or we should do such and such. And I would even ask you to kind of take the shoulds out of your writing to start with, and make sure that the conclusions that you're coming to about your organization or your community are based on the research that you're going to do through the project. That's why it's sometimes difficult when you've been in a situation a long time. You have preconceived ideas, and that's not to say those ideas are not correct, but the idea is to go into a situation with a humility that, okay, I'm here to learn something among the people I'm working with, the people in the community, the people, whatever it is, and trying to omit some of your own preconceived ideas and just do a lot of listening. All right, let's go ahead and open that up for any questions. Let me just see here, anything in the chat room. Okay, I don't see any questions there. Anybody have any questions that you just want to ask as we... Siobhan, did you still have a question? I know you had your hand up earlier, Nate, but we forgot to call you.
I did.
Go ahead.
Thank you for looping back around. It was something you initially brought up. So if we are doing this project design class now, are we on track to graduate in 2020? Is that the track? Because once we finish, then we actually would then begin writing. That would be your goal, yeah, for 2020. If you want to graduate in 2020, you must have a proposal submitted to the academic cabinet by, I think it's June 30th. Okay. So yeah, hopefully you'll have a lot of time to get that in. Okay. Yeah, before June 30th. Okay, and then I had enrolled in this class before, but I pulled out right before it started. But Dr. Melton had sent out a list of possible dissertation supervisors. So I know you mentioned that you had already sent a pulse out to see what new faculty were interested. So will it, like a full list, including what she had sent, will be sent out to us then? Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll just remind myself to put that to you. Yeah, I can say a few days ago, I just wrote to especially our new faculty and some of those that I know have been doing dissertation supervisory work. And so once I get that list, and I'll see what list Dr. Melton put forth, I will go ahead and resend that whole list out to everybody in the class, so you maybe have some ideas. Okay. And then for the ProQuest, access to the ProQuest, you said that's our BGU user ID would be access to get it. Right, yeah. I'm not always sure what that looks like. Say, I mean, the one I just used
was just given to me as a faculty person, but I think you should
And
have
I have
some kind of
one.
an- Okay. Does it start with BGU?
It's actually my, well, it's actually my part of my name, but I'll
Okay.
find out.
Okay. Well, I think that's what you would enter then into the, try that in Progress. If that doesn't work, you'd need to contact Jennifer Roman.
Roman, okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
she's the one who kind of handles all that access information.
Okay, you answered all my questions. Thank you.
Good. All right. Thanks, Siobhan. Anything else that anybody has a pressing question right now you'd like to ask before we end our session today? I'm going to try to hold these sessions to an hour just so that we can be respectful of your time.
Bill, I have a question.
Go ahead, Anthony.
And again, sorry I entered late. I had a commitment I couldn't get out of for about 15 minutes.
Gotcha. No problem.
But just looking ahead, and you may have dealt with this, but I'm just curious, is the actual writing of the dissertation, is that effort, is that a 6-month, a 12-month process? What does it tend to be? Once you've scoped out your path,
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, so there's an additional level of research you're going to be engaging in, and then you're going to be writing as well. Can you speak to that effort in terms of how long that typically is?
Well, let's just say where we're at right now in this year. Okay, we're in January. You're going to finish this course by March. Okay, you'll have a proposal. You'll get once you've got a grade from this course and you've got a proposal that has been accepted by myself and Dr. Henry as the teachers in this particular course. Then you're going to take that proposal. You'll submit it to your supervisor, who will then maybe have some recommendations. Once you and your supervisor are in agreement on your proposal, then you would submit that to the academic cabinet. Like I said, you have until June 30th to submit a proposal to the academic cabinet if you want to graduate in 2020.
Okay.
So whenever you got your proposal in and you get it accepted by the academic cabinet, say you get that in and you have your proposal accepted by let's just make April 30th. You've got okay. Then you have, say, from April 30th, basically till the end of the year. I think if you look at the final project handbook, I think the first draft needs to be submitted and approved by your supervisor by mid-December, I think it is. Okay. So you basically have from the time that you have your proposal accepted by the cabinet, let's say April 30th, until mid-December. So you've got what, 7, 8 months to finish the writing of that first draft. So that's maybe say a 7-month period that you'd be doing that. Once you have that first draft submitted and accepted, there's a few other review processes that have to go on. Your supervisor would be the first one who kind of accepts that first draft, approves it. I then, as the BGU director of doctoral dissertations, I look at it to make sure that you've kind of followed the organizational format and that I think you have a standard of academic writing that we're not going to need to bring another editor. If I feel like your writing is just really not up to a standard that I feel is necessary for doctoral work, then we're going to ask that you bring in a professional editor who's going to work with you to polish that writing. Also, you will have a second reader that also needs to be involved in that approval process. So this all happens once that first draft is completed, say at the end of this year in December.
Okay.
Once you get through that process, say by about February of next year, that writing piece, that first draft, a fairly finished draft will go to our BGU technical reader. And she will look at that from a technical reading perspective, especially in terms of following a particular format. We generally use the APA format. And so she's going to look at that to make sure, your documentation is correct in terms of those standards. She's going to look at grammar. She'll look at some of those issues, and then she will give you her recommendations, okay? Once you've gone through that process, by, say, next March or so, you will hopefully have completed what you consider a draft that has been approved by your supervisor, your second reader, and the BGU technical reader. Once you've gotten through all those approval processes, you will then have an oral review, which will take some time to place next April or May. And that oral review consists of a BGU representative, which is myself or someone else, your supervisor, and your second reader. You'll gather for about 2 hours of time. You will make a 15-minute presentation, just kind of summarizing some of the main components of your dissertation. You'll have kind of a big discussion time with that committee. Then the voting members of that committee kind of go offline for about 15 minutes and come back on and kind of give you the results of that evaluation. That's kind of a long answer to answer your question about how long it takes for a dissertation process. But I just want to make sure we all are clear on what the process looks like for the next several months.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
So I do want to tag on with the question to that. So once we've completed this course and we have all of the approvals and we start writing, how are we enrolling in our remaining classes? Because we would still have to enroll in dissertation part 1 and 2. So part 1 is and part 2 is. I'm kind of curious what that looks like.
Right. Yeah. Part 1 and 2. I mean, those are mainly for the registrar's purposes. First of all, to kind of so you're enrolled in a course, and you're going to, of course, have to pay X number of dollars per credit. Mm-hmm. What we now have is we've actually put together another populi course called, dissertation writing part 1 and part 2. That you'll actually be in that course, and then you and other students that are working in that particular term, along with all the supervisors that are working in that particular term, and myself and a few others, will have access to that course. So what you'd be doing, ideally, you'll submit your chapters into the, the assignment slots, the assignment boxes in that course. Your supervisor can be looking at that. If I want to take a look at it, I will be able to look at that also, and you can get feedback from various people. I'm hoping, we're kind of working on a process right now of trying to get our second readers more involved in the process. So it's not just a student and a supervisor, but that it's a student, a supervisor, and an associate supervisor that we'll call a second reader. Hopefully, every one of those will be involved in this dissertation part 1 and 2, so that everybody's looking at your process as you go along and trying to give you helpful feedback along the way. So that's the dissertation part 1, part 2 that you would enter into. Basically, you'd enter into that once you have your proposal approved by the academic cabinet.
And that's a new process you're saying that's kind of forming out, or was it in the past where you were kind of doing it independently with the person?
Right. Yeah, we just started that last year. Judy, Dr. Melton, had put together this course. She just thought it would be helpful, to kind of give a little more structure to going through this dissertation part 1 and 2. So we're still kind of working on that, trying to add some more structure and content to be helpful to everyone.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks.
My question is, if I am unsure about my dissertation topic, so how could I work on my proposal? So I know the topic, but not the direction. So I have still different direction in my mind.
Okay, well, that's what you're going to do through these next several weeks, I think. This week, you're going to just submit a general topic, okay? That's really pretty much all we're asking you to do. I'd have to look at the discussion, what's involved in that. I think you mentioned a topic. I was trying to remember if we actually asked what to possibly think about the theoretical framework. Anyway, look at the discussion question for this week. But you have a general topic in mind, and then you're going to go through a process over the next few weeks of trying to put that topic into a formal problem statement, okay? And then also developing a formal purpose statement, okay? So, the problem statement is just what it says. What is the issue, the problem that you're trying to address? Sometimes I call it a problem or even an opportunity that might be, you might not even use the word problem, but it's an opportunity to do some good in a particular context. And then the purpose statement is what you plan to do the direction that you're going to do to try to address this issue, this problem, this opportunity. So you have a topic in mind right now, but over the next few weeks, hopefully you'll be able to formalize that into a problem statement and a purpose statement and some research questions, which are kind of the formal questions that you're trying to answer based on this particular final project.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else before we close down this session for today? Okay, if you think of questions, feel free to email them. You can do that on the site. You can email Dr. Henry or myself, and we will try to answer any questions. Both Dr. Henry and I will be kind of looking at some of the discussion areas. I think Dr. Henry is going to take the main responsibility in doing the grading for the discussions. I will be looking at the discussions, though, and giving any input that I have there. I'll probably take the formal responsibility to look at your weekly assignments. Dr. Henry will also look at those too, but I'll go ahead and issue grades on those weekly assignments. And then we'll both actually be looking at your, the final project draft, proposal draft that you submit, and we'll both kind of consult in terms of what we think how you should be graded on that. Okay. But yeah, start with the discussions and keep trying to get through those. And then, like I say, this week, you're going to just look at 2 research articles and try to analyze those articles based on what's written there and then some of the things that Dr. Henry just mentioned. All right, with that, we'll get together again next week on Wednesday. We're going to change some of you who joined late next week just because I have a conflict. Both Dr. Henry and I have a conflict with another meeting that we both need to be a part of. We're going to have a Zoom meeting next week. Will be on Wednesday at the same time. What Wednesday is the 16th, I think? Yes, 16th. Be 10:30 Eastern time, and then you need to convert that time to your particular local time zone.
And will this link be sent out as well?
Yes, this session has been recorded, and I'll try to get those. It usually takes a couple of hours for it to do its conversion and stuff, but I'll try to get that. I'll get that link to you later on today.
Thanks.
All right. Well, with that, I think we'll end. We will be seeing you in the various components on the online course, the discussions and the weekly assignments, and just pray the Lord gives us all direction and wisdom to do the Lord's will within the various projects that we're all doing. So bye for now.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Goodbye now.